Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Nathan,
I'm Doug.
and welcome to episode 2 of Pod
Pod
Duck
Duck
Dong.
Dong.
Yeah. This is a podcast where we talk about Asian Americans in entertainment.
And our own personal journey as we go through it, because we think this is an exciting time for Asian Americans in the industry. And, we kind of wanted to document our journey along with the journey of Asian Americans in Hollywood.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that was a pretty little succinct way to talk about our podcast. So, yeah, what we kind of like to talk about is kind of what's happening right now in Asian American entertainment, with kind of a segment we like to call headlines. We're kind of thinking of other names for it, but for now we're going to call it headlines. And so, yeah, I guess just jumping right in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So last weekend, we saw the first Asian American woman in 18 years.
Yeah.
Was it
18 years?
Host SNL.
Aquafina giving it to me. She looked amazing. She she was great with whatever material they gave her. I mean, but it's crazy though. 18 years, only the second Asian American woman, only the sixth.
Someone who was born in 2000 would be going to college right now, never having seen an Asian American woman on this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stats, when we deep dived into those stats, they were pretty crazy, 830 all-time SNLs, and then out of those, you said 91% was white.
Yeah, 91%. I think right now we're probably at 850, but 92% of hosts were white.
Yeah, which is understandable. And then 6.5% is black.
What do you mean understandable?
I'm just saying that. When did SNL start? Probably in the 70s, right?
Yeah, in the 70s.
So the 70s, 80s, 90s. Those are going to be
yeah, but 90%. Yeah, and then how many black hosts?
6.5%.
6.5%.
And then 1.6% Hispanic.
Yeah.
And then 0.2% Asian Americans.
Yeah, 0.2%.
Enough that you know all 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, so it's Lucy Liu, Aquafina, Kumail Nanjiani, Aziz Ansari, Jackie Chan, and Bruno Mars has hosted, but he was not counted in the realm of Asian Americans. So to me, I'm saying 6. Right. But other people are saying 5. But we cannot forget Bruno. He is half Filipino. He's literally identified himself as Filipino on the show.
He's more Filipino than anything else because he's a quarter
50%.
Puerto Rican, a quarter Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, the majority is Asian.
Come on, majority? Yeah. But that's crazy. 6 hosts in the whole run.
Right.
But I think she did a great job. Her homage to Lucy Liu was great. I thought that Bowen Yang helped write her opening monologue.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait, people write their actual monologues for them?
Douglas, this is the magic of television.
Oh my
yes,
God.
people write them. Yes.
I always, oh my God, you're ruining the magic for me. I feel like I've been lied to this entire time.
No, I remember because I was on a show and the head writer, the showrunner of my show, he was a writer on SNL, and he helped write Jennifer Aniston's monologue actually way back when. So not way back when, but when he was on the show. And so,
but yeah, I even heard that Bowen Yang was I think the first Asian American writer in the writer's room.
That's crazy.
Yeah. He might have been one of the first, or in a while, or I think it might have been the actual first.
Wow.
I'll have to check that later. But it was just kind of
we need to actually check that stat. That's crazy. If you don't know Bowen Yang, he's a super talented writer, comedian, podcaster. He has this podcast called Las Culturistas with Matt Rogers, and it's so funny. They're hilarious. It's a deep dive into pop culture. They have this iconic segment called I Don't Think So, Honey, so you should definitely check him out and support him because he's blowing up. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. What else is headlining? So the next headline is interesting to me. I don't know if it's interesting to you, Doug, but NCT 127 is this K-pop group, and they just performed.
Wait, hold on. What's 127?
So NCT is this K-pop group, and it's 18 of them. It's an 18.
Wait, hold
member,
on.
Yeah.
18
Yes.
members.
So there's a group.
That's...
Yes, it's too many, but that's their branding. Their branding is that like there's so many of them that they don't want you to learn any of their names. They don't want you to learn any of their personalities. They just want you to remember the brand so that they can just keep swapping people out of it. So they what they'll do is if you're part of the NCT like umbrella, but they're going to be doing NCT China, they're going to be doing NCT Vietnam, they're going to be creating like a brand of groups all over Asia.
So what does NCT even stand for?
It calls from it stands for like Neo Future and
what about that number 1 2? Was there any
so I don't think there's any significance about the number. I think there is, but like I don't know the significance. But basically they pulled 10 members out of NCT. So there's NCT Dream, which is their 18 and under group, and there's 7 in that group.
Okay.
And then there's also NCT 127, which I assume is basically like the rest of the boys.
Okay.
And so like they're all over 19, I believe. And so they just did their first English performance on Jimmy Kimmel live, and I think they uploaded the video like 9 hours ago, and they already have like 1 million views. It's crazy. Like, I mean, like the K-pop like blow up and glow up is like really happening, but I mean, like what's frustrating is like people are really comparing them to BTS because it's really the only thing that we have to compare it to. But
do you think that's because BTS kind of like opened the floodgates into like K-pop, and now it's like, oh, this is this other thing that's kind of like BTS or whatever?
Absolutely. But I think BTS, like, their come up was so specific. Like, they were the runts of the trainee academies. Like, they weren't the best singers or dancers. Like, they were signed to this really small, like, dinky independent label, and just kind of like blew up because of their like messages, and because like they would speak out against the Korean government. They would speak out against like class inequality. They would spoke up for gay rights. They really kind of
there's just like less controlledness of their brand, of the message that they were doing. And that was like an appeal to Koreans in Korea at first, because it was like, oh, this fresh thing that's not this machine made like product.
Yes. And so SM, which is like one of the biggest, they're one of the big 3 record labels. They created NCT, which is kind of like the antithesis to BTS. Like they are just a product. So what I'm nervous about is like, I mean, like people love NCT because they are the epitome of K-pop. They're perfect vocals, perfect choreography. Their look, they all look, like Ken dolls.
Right.
And they, but like I think that what is interesting, that we'll see in the next coming weeks and months is like, are they going to be seen as just like this kind of bad photocopy of American music? Because their song is called Regular, and it's like really kind of like every kind of bad trope, not bad trope, but every kind of trope of music that's current right now just kind of meshed into one song. And I don't know if it
doesn't have anything new or a fresh take on what it is. It's just kind of like, oh, what's popular now? It's like, oh, this trappy, like rap beat or whatever. So we're going to just like copy that and like expect, because of we're going to kind of like almost hijack or piggyback off of BTS's like,
hype,
right, and then like create our own product that is like quote unquote Americanized and like this cool thing, and that way we can capitalize on it.
Right. So we're gonna see if that works for them. I don't know if it will, but I also don't know if American audience can tell the difference between BTS and NCT. Like, if you held up a picture of the two groups, I don't think 90% of America would be able to tell the difference. And so I think it's just kind of a wait and see moment in kind of music right now, which we're going to get some more music later, and kind of like following that musical kind of through line. So we both saw A Star Is Born yesterday.
Yeah. So many feelings.
Yeah, a lot of feelings. What did you think?
So I think we both saw the trailer together, and we're just kind of like, what are we watching here?
Yeah, I mean, when she's like, I'm on the deep end, watch as I dive in. Like, like Lady Gaga has recently been giving me like full Elvis throughout the Joanne era. And like, Yeah, I don't know.
Is that like totally like not her style?
No, I think it truly is. And so like I'm glad that she's living her life and creating the music that she wants to listen to.
Right.
But it's that jarring thing of like it's not like what got the gay community excited about her in the first place. And so like I'm happy that she's doing her music. There are other fans that are just like she should only do the music that like we want. But I mean, for me, I'm just like, if she wants to do this music, let her do this music. Like,
and that movie was kind of like about that, right?
Absolutely.
How, like, and that even touched upon her origins in like, I guess like, well, it shows kind of like her starting out in like a drag queen kind of like bar.
Yeah,
and she was like doing these kind of like burlesque type of acts and stuff like that. And I think that was kind of like her experiencing it coming up in New York.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movie was interesting in that it was a good look into like kind of like Lady Gaga and like how her experiences were like in the music industry, like how being told that she wasn't pretty enough or she wasn't good looking enough or whatever to be in this music industry. But to me, I kind of like from the trailer, it was just kind of like I felt like I knew what it was gonna be. And then I was like, I don't really, that doesn't really interest me that much.
We also knew it was going to be because this is the fourth Star is Born.
Right.
So,
yeah. I didn't realize it was remade that many times. I was like,
yeah, like, I mean, because it was originally supposed to be Beyonce, which I mean, like, I will follow Beyonce to the ends of the earth. But I mean, like, I'm actually glad they got Lady Gaga to do it because I think Lady Gaga is a good actor. You know? But yeah, I guess, sorry, I cut you off about like, you know, like what, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when I was watching it, like the fourth time, it's just kind of like, does this movie really need to be made a fourth time? And if it is being remade a fourth time, I feel like it should be saying something new.
Yes.
It should be saying something fresh or something like that.
Yeah.
And there were so many moments in this movie where you thought they were going to say something poignant about some specific topic. And it was like, wait, we're just like tossing that aside.
Yes.
And there were like these like interesting ideas. I'm not going to spoil it, but like basically like, you know, is kind of like we were getting into it. We were getting into these scenes that were very dramatic, and it's just kind of like, oh, the next scene is like, oh, we're over it.
Because I mean, like, I think it was so rife to talk about, you know, like, because Lady Gaga was so steeped in that role, it could have been like, great, let's talk about the consequences of fame. Let's talk about, you know, like changing who you are to like fit within the industry. Let's talk about, you know, dating someone else that's in the same industry as you and like seeing each other rise and fall, you know, like, and nothing of that was really addressed, strangely enough. It was
just kind of like, that is the more... When like last night when you were talking to me about Lady Gaga's actual story, I was like, that was more fascinating than what we saw.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, what? I feel like they were too tied maybe to the source material or maybe like the parameters of which they like
maybe
of the script or whatever. But I just felt like there was so many missed opportunities, and that was kind of like a little bit of the disappointing part of the movie, and also kind of like. I felt like it was overhyped to me because, like, you know, after it came out in Toronto, I just heard all this hoopla. I was like
10-minute standing ovation. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I think Bradley Cooper is magic in it. I think Lady Gaga is very talented, although I did see an SNL writer say like something like I forget what it was, but it was about like Lady Gaga's fillers and like. I mean, like, I love Lady Gaga. We didn't even say this before, but I love Lady Gaga, but, like, I miss the moment where, like, people's foreheads and cheeks, like, moved during things. And, like, I don't know. That's more a comment on, like, the standards of beauty that we put on women and, like, what we force them to do to make them acceptable. And, like, it's really unfortunate. But I think that she was so great in it. But I just wish that I think it was, for me, it was, like, maybe the hype was too great, but I feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity to address those really kind of exciting things that I think we don't look at as much in the music industry.
Right. And so you were kind of talking about this earlier, about like how it's similar to that Sandra Bullock movie in terms of like
The Blind Side. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes I think that the Hollywood machine like gets there are some years that they just tell us that this is the movie that we are going to be, you know, we're going to be crowning, as the movie. And so, I mean, I think that
it's almost scary in terms of like how much power and control over like they have over what we should and shouldn't like how much even taste making control they have in terms of like, yeah.
But I think it's, I think this movie is not necessarily like is what this country needs right now, but I think it's a movie that everyone, no matter who you are, can just like agree on. Like, I can sit down and just like watch this for 2.5 hours, however long, because it's very long.
Yeah.
But like you can just watch this movie and just like you're not going to disagree with anybody on either side of the political spectrum, on either side of like race, sexuality, class. Like we're all going to basically feel the same way after watching this movie, and I think that's kind of like what The Blind Side was supposed to make you feel like. And I think that that's kind of the same road that they're going down. Like it's just like, just watch Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper and just like sit and watch their chemistry for 2 hours and sit and watch, and like listen to them sing and we'll watch a million scenes of them cuddling and then like feel a little sad at the end. And like, that's it. And like, what? Like,
it works. It works on like a very visceral level. It works like, I teared up during certain scenes.
Yeah, so I did not. I'm dead inside. I was just like, okay, but can we get to the plot? Like,
right. But it did feel long for sure. When the first act, I was just kind of like, oh man, this is gonna be a long one.
I mean, like that beginning, I did get chills when like Lady Gaga is singing. This is spoiler alert. So if really kind of like if you haven't watched it, then whatever. Like sorry about it. But like when she's like there's the beginning montage where like you see Bradley Cooper, they establish him, and then they establish Lady Gaga immediately, and she's walking and she takes out the trash and she's like walking through like this trash dumpster chute and she's singing a Judy Garland song, who is the original Star Is Born, and like that was to me like chills. Like that was like, okay. Like,
wait, did you watch the other?
I didn't.
Star Is Born. Oh, okay.
I do want to.
I see.
Like now, I do want to go back and watch them, but I mean, I don't know. Like I think what would have been exciting, even if Beyonce wouldn't have been like as dynamic as Lady Gaga, like I mean, unless she would have brought, like what is that movie that Beyonce was in with Ali Larter?
I remember. I only remember the Austin Powers 3.
Oh yeah, not that. But I mean, like I think that like it would have at least said something about race, and and that would have been something that I could have latched onto, because I think like the fourth time of just being like, you're ignoring like like I think they did a pretty good job of like socioeconomic status, but I think that you're ignoring like what it means to be a person of color in the industry, what it means to like not that you have to tell that story every time, but that we haven't heard that story yet, and so like I would have loved to hear and see that.
Do you think like when do you think they're gonna remake the movie and have like an Asian American character in it?
I mean, like never. Like who are the Asian American like musicians? Like maybe Bruno Mars. Like Bruno Mars is like as the Bradley Cooper character. Like, but I mean, like who is and maybe even Bruno Mars writing the music, not necessarily even like starring in it. Like it would be some, I don't know, like Daniel Day Kim or John Cho. I feel like is too like nice looking. Like you need that like rough, rugged, like the man. And like Daniel Day Kim is a man, but I mean, like in 20 years, I don't know. Like we don't have like
a musician on the right, or like an Asian American musician, like a very like undeniably talented Asian American. Like who's I mean, we have them; they exist, but like, are they supported by the machine? Right.
Is like the question. Like there are tons of Asian American, like musicians like on the come up and already like just killing it, but like, are they given the support of an Ariana Grande, of like any XYZ Iggy Azalea? Like they're not. So like they're relegated to like this kind of like indie like purgatory,
right?
Almost.
Which kind of like brings us to our like main topic of the day, where it's kind of like where do Asians fit in the music industry? Because I think like music in general, like pop music in America, is kind of like coded into either black or white.
Yeah.
And I guess cultural appropriating whites, I guess. But like, yeah, when Asians do it, like, I think it's just kind of like, what quote unquote music are we allowed to do?
Right. And I think that's kind of, gosh, I mean, I think you have to kind of split it into two sections. You know, like there is Asian Americans, and then there are Asian artists.
Right.
And I think, you know, like what we're seeing right now is we're seeing like this almost like the behemoth of K-pop, you know, which has already like conquered Asian, you know, like pop culture. Like it's now starting to bleed over in America. You know, you have BTS, you have NCT that has just performed on Jimmy Kimmel, you have, you know, like Red Velvet, you have Wendy from Red Velvet who's now doing a duet with John Legend.
Right.
You know, you have all these K-pop artists now linking with like American culture and pushing into the realm. But what I'm kind of curious about with that side is like, is it actual integration, or is it actually like separate but equal? You know, like,
right,
is it like
separate but equal?
No, but it is kind of like, it's like, you know, like, is Middle America ever going to really know who BTS is, or really know, like, you know,
and that was kind of like the issue like Psy had with the industry.
Absolutely.
When he released Gangnam Style,
Mm-hmm.
he really had this message behind that song in terms like it was supposed to be a political satire.
Yeah.
He is almost kind of like the a little bit like Weird Al in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like when, you know, because they're, you know, most Americans don't understand Korean,
Right.
they weren't aware of this, and they kind of took it at face value. Oh, this is like a memeable memeable dance, and like let's just kind of like get on board because it's funny.
Right.
And because of that, like when he tried to get into the American industry, he was kind of jaded about like how it was like just turning him into this clown character, and he was just kind of like, whatever, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, it was like this minstrelization of Korean culture.
Right.
So I mean, like, I don't know, like, will this song with John Legend, will that pop off? Will, you know, like with this NCT performance, I don't know if that really kind of captures what, you know, like what we want. Like the true fans of K-pop love K-pop because it's K-pop, not because we want it to be, you know, a like carbon copy of
American
a Cardi B
pop.
song, you know, or a Migos song. Like, I don't know if that's like why we listen to K-pop. But, you know, inevitably, because it's a machine, you know, they're trying to expand into territory that BTS got there, but I don't think that they really are understanding why we've hooked into what
would you say is the reason why people gravitate towards K-pop?
I think K-pop is this. What K-pop does is it takes a lot of influences, whether it be American, African American, whether it be Latin music, and then they kind of study as like why it becomes popular, and what exactly they kind of look at the science of music, which I think is a very Asian thing to do. You know, like to study something until
that sounds like I think that sounds like something Rivers Cuomo from Weezer was doing. He was just like analyzing pop songs and like figuring out like what made certain things popular. Like on a data basis or something.
I mean, I think that K-pop does that really well with like, you know, they hire the best American choreographers, they hire, you know, the best stylists, and they get the best producers, you know, and then they kind of take these things, they study them, and then they kind of finesse them into a way that is like kind of a moment of almost like pop perfection, which I feel like is what the K-pop brand is like, is how do we perfect this idea that like is seated in American pop music, and then like create something that's like very Korean, but in doing so is universal in that way. I think. Yeah.
It's their own spin, their own point of view on that kind of stuff.
Which can be dangerous, because I mean they've set up this kind of like interesting like pyramid scheme of music where they're like literally like, you have to become a trainee at 12, and then, you know, at 15 you have your first chance of like getting into a group, and then, you know, like now with NCT it's like by 18 like you're too old to be in like one of their groups, you know, and then you have to like go into the next group, and so I mean like it kind of puts all the power within the structure, within the
like the producers and the
producers, exactly.
And
the label versus and the artists have zero power, which is
Like, are they even artists at that point?
Yeah.
Or
I
are
mean,
they
like,
kind of like...
well, I always hearken. I don't know how I just use the word hearken, but I always think of K-pop as more of a sport than as music. Like, because what they do is like literally all the people from all these groups, they can just leave a group and then go compete on a TV show, or they can like
they're like free agents.
Yeah, and like they're not free agents, but like within these like groups, like it's like, okay, like so like when we went to KCON and we saw that newest group, it was like this newest W, and so what happened was like one of their members joined another group, and that group blew up, so that when that member, after 2 years, when that group is done, that member will come back to his old group, and theoretically people will then love that group even more. So it's a lot about franchising. It's a lot about it's so much
star
business,
power,
power, and like cultivating,
like LeBron coming to the Lakers or something.
Exactly,
instantly
it's
making it relevant.
like that.
Yeah,
it's exactly like that. And so I think that's the interesting thing about K-pop, and I just don't know if that will necessarily translate here. I mean, I hope it does. I love K-pop, but I mean, I think that like the other side of the coin, the Asian American side, is such an interesting realm. Yeah,
and I think that's just kind of like recently developing with stuff like 88 Rising. I think like Rich Brian and Joji are kind of like the top kind of like headliners of that.
Yeah.
But both of them are kind of like unique in this just kind of like self-assured way. They just have this confidence that I think a lot of like our generation, for example, just didn't really have. And I think it just comes from like growing up in a different era. But I mean, like Rich Brian was, he grew up in Indonesia, so maybe he didn't have some of the same hangups that a lot of Asian Americans have. But also like, I think what we're seeing is that and we'll talk about this later, but like Gen Z, like Asian Americans, because a lot of them are now probably like now second and third generation, they've already kind of like had parents and had this upbringing where they now understand American culture a lot well from the get-go, from the jump. And because of that, I think they're a little bit more confident in themselves and a little bit more assured in what they have to say in their point of view. And I feel like what's happening right now is that like they still like kind of like take influences from black and white culture in terms of like their music, because there isn't kind of this like Asian music category,
right?
But I think they're doing it like kind of similar, like what you were saying, that K-pop was doing. They're doing it in a way that kind of like captures their own kind of like spin on the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from personal experience. It's like it's because the Asian American experience is so fractured. That's kind of like our music scene is so fractured.
Right.
You have Joji and Rich Brian, which you played me Joji for the first time today, and like that changed my life. Like I was like, what am I listening to? This is exactly me. This kind of euphoric trip hop, like melancholy but driving, like just like fuck me up dad music. Like it was exactly. It immediately resonated with me.
Yeah, I know that Rich Brian is probably like what people know, but Joji to me was like he's like a true like visionary in my opinion. Like he's just like legit has like this voice, or not just his voice, but like his point of view that you can just kind of like viscerally respond to. He has something to say. It's so clear that he has something to say. And I've been following him since he's been doing like YouTube videos as a comedian. He kind of has this like wacky, weird, out there comedy, and his music is a little bit more serious. But like, it's just kind of like,
well, yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Because he has this like self-confidence that I think like that comes with being from this younger generation. I mean, he's not too young. He's like 26 now, but like I do feel like there is this base layer of Asian American culture that is being like laid out, and the tracks are being laid out, and we are now just kind of like building on top, and they're trying like creating that base layer.
I mean, like, I also feel that like there is something like innately kind of like queer about like so much of what's happening in like Asian American music, and it's kind of about that like like just existing in music is kind of like a rebellious act, like and so like when you look at like Rina, and you look at Chester Lockhart, you look at Kehlani and Haley Kiyoko, like they're all they're all actually like they're all these queer artists
Sure.
that are, but like and they're Asian American, you know, like, and so it's this interesting. That's what's been so fulfilling for me to be like every single time like an Asian American artist comes out, I'm just like, oh, and they're a little gay, okay, you know, like, and it's like so exciting, you know, like
because it is. I think it is this like shared experience of just being marginalized, and like obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Being Asian, you have one degree of marginalization, and being Asian plus queer, and that's something I've been learning from you, is that there is this other degree of marginalization, and it's just kind of like because they're marginalized within their own marginalized group, it's like I think they have more of a pull or like a desire to have a voice and to be noticed.
No, absolutely, and I mean like. It's interesting. I mean, because I recently, I don't know if like we can maybe cut this out.
Sure.
But like I recently talked with Dia Frampton.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting hearing her experience because you know she's Hapa and she kind of like you know grew up in this. She had gone on Warped Tour. She had gone on like you know she like blew up on The Voice.
Right.
And it was interesting hearing. You know, like, because that was 10, you know, over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I think The Voice was 2011, but like, you know, like her
Warped Tour, yeah.
when her Megan Dia phase, you know, it was totally during, you know, like it was a decade ago, and so I think that her kind of like, how do you navigate like a space that's mostly white, you know, and like how do you navigate being, you know, Asian American and what really is identity? Because I don't know if she necessarily at the time like even like. I don't really know, like, I guess, like, what her whole situation was, but I think we can, like, have that conversation. But I think it's interesting now to see, like, you know, like, even she really, like, set the table for people to really push through, you know? It was, like, and it was, like, she, for me, was, like, the first time that I really saw myself, you know, in music. And, like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, like...
Well, when did you first hear about her?
I mean, like, I voted for her every week during The Voice. Like, I was obsessed because I was just like, I wonder if she's like, because I was like seeing her and I thought, of course, like she says that everyone always thinks she's Filipino. I thought she was Filipino when I first saw her, and I like looked up and I was like, oh no, she's half Korean. Like, I'm half Korean. So
you got that too.
Yeah, I immediately connected with her, and like I had voted for, and I was like so upset. Like, I had not voted for someone since like season like 4 of American Idol. Like I was like, just like when she got second, and I was like so proud, and you know, like it was such a moment, and like I, like when I listened to that music, you know, like she had this song called like "Don't Kick the Chair," and it was just like this, like you know, like life really sucks, but like don't kill yourself, and like, but like it was just so like it was cheeky and fun and buoyant, and like she like. I think that she to me was the first time where I really saw myself in music, and like because like it would be like Hoobastank, like there's like the Asian singer, or like Linkin Park, but like I don't really think that they identified with their identity, you know, like and I don't even know if Dia really did until later, because I think that that's just like what our journey has been as Asian American artists. But like
it's just kind of like when you're told like Asian artists aren't a thing, you're just kind of like, well, okay, then I'm probably gonna gravitate to it's like an automatic funnel that like pushes you towards that, like, oh, I'm not gonna identify that because that's not a thing apparently.
Or we just like didn't, as a community, even like didn't know how to grapple with, you know, we didn't have the tools to be like, we're something outside of whiteness or blackness,
right?
Like, I think, I mean, yeah. So I'm excited about 88 Rising. I'm excited about like all these like queer Asian artists like coming up, and because I feel like they're like the great thing is like we're gonna see like Asian American music, like we are the ones that get to like experience this come up, you know, like there's Uzuhan in Atlanta, Georgia. She's this like Korean rapper, and like he has a song called like Mung Beans and Tofu. He has a song called like Heavy Hitters where he talks about, you know, like we are the ones that finally get to go up to bat and like are the ones that like are gonna like hit the home runs, you know, like because of the people that came before us, you know, like, and it's just it's just exciting.
It is this thing of like, I think there's this collective thing where Asian Americans are realizing like these stories nobody's going to write these stories and these things for us. We need to take control of our narrative. We need to like put this down, and like even our music needs to be have this like our own perspective and our based on our own kind of like experiences as Asian Americans growing up. And then it's just kind of like I feel like this and like this new generation is just like taking like more control or more confidence to like to take that into their own hands.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're like seeing the shaping literally happen. Ugh. So we've touched on Asian music with K-pop and that kind of that realm, and we've talked kind of about like this Asian American kind of underground scene, this kind of up and coming scene. But I kind of like where Asian American music is right now, and like really the only person I can even think of is Bruno Mars, right?
In the mainstream.
In the mainstream.
Yeah. That's crazy to me, right? Because like I didn't even know Bruno Mars was Asian until maybe a few years ago. I kind of like always thought he was this Latino guy. I mean, he is a quarter Latino. But like to me, like I guess it was because my brain was so like it was so far removed from my mind that an Asian person could be a superstar that when I heard of Bruno Mars, I was like, oh, it's just like a cool guy. And, you know, Bruno Mars, obviously that was a name that he chose because he was marginalized in the industry prior to his coming up. And so when you like in pop culture, when you just like, you don't really delve deeply into these things, I guess like, well, I didn't at the time. So it's just kind of like, I didn't even realize that he was Filipino.
I mean, like he faced so much kind of discrimination in the industry, like, you know, like when his like song "Nothing on You" came, and like it's like everyone was like, well, how do we market you, you know, like your last name is Hernandez, like we can't do anything with that.
His producer, a producer apparently literally told him that like this is not going anywhere. This song is not going anywhere. It's you know, one of the biggest fucking hits in you know that time. No, it's so funny because like when he came out, like I didn't know that he was half Filipino either. And it is that kind of like funny train of just like, because Just the Way You Are is like it's like the precursor to Ed Sheeran. It's like that kind of like so earnest that it hurts kind of music. And like, you know, I was never like, I was like always like, I was just like this song, and then Billionaire came out, and like it's kind of like this like it's like almost like Hawaiian inspired, like that and like I just kind of like didn't really connect to it. But then like it is that weird thing of like when you like everyone was, like when I found out, I was like, oh no, he's half Filipino. I was like, oh okay, like oh he's half Filipino, okay, and then like immediately I'm like, okay, let me watch this Grenade video. Exactly.
Let me like get on the bandwagon. I mean, like
there is this element of like, oh, this is family. This is like someone who's part of like, you know, my culture. Let me just binge everything this person has ever done in his life.
Exactly. And it's like support them. And so I mean, like it was that strange feeling of being like, oh, like he's half Filipino, I'm half Filipino. Like I do really resonate with him. But it's that hard thing of like, I think that, you know, like he loves to pay homage to the music that he loves, which happens like, which is steeped in, you know, Motown, funk, you know, Jack Swing, all these really kind of, you know, deeply rooted like in like African American culture, like music stylings. And so I mean, like he's been accused of cultural appropriation, but I mean, I think that he's really, for me, like always first thanked all the artists that come before him. And like we were talking earlier, it's like it's not that he's like a white artist that is,
he's like a person of color. And to me, when I saw him, I recently just saw this SNL thing just to catch up on him, but I was like, you know, he could, like if an average person saw him, I feel like they could pass for like black person, you know, like I feel like it's like not this thing. Because like when I heard some of the debates, so one thing stuck out to me, like, oh, they want black music but not from black bodies. And I was like, is that really what's happening with Bruno Mars?
I think that it's such a hard thing because we're not black, we're not part of the African diaspora, so we can't really talk on their experience. But I think I think that like it's okay to have a gray area, and I think
Yeah.
Bruno Mars sits within this area where there can be debate. You know, he's not Miley Cyrus or Taylor Swift or like Justin Bieber, who like very much so like their MO for a
Capitalized.
minute. Yeah, exactly, is to consume Black culture and then make it consumable to white culture. Like I think Bruno Mars like like he is steeped within that community.
Right.
Like and I think that he like puts in like the effort and the appreciation and the love for that music. And there was that the argument that we're kind of talking about is it stems from this YouTube show called The Grapevine, and they kind of were talking about it, and they were like, we wouldn't even be talking about it if this was a white person, but because Bruno
Right.
Mars, like we do have this respect for his talent, and we have respect for like his voice,
Right.
know, and
Like those other examples, they came up kind of like through the machine, through
Yeah.
that like music machine, and then it's like, oh, how do we make you more relevant now? Let's
Exactly.
put a
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
a spin on your music, which is
Yes,
decidedly African American.
Exactly.
Whereas he kind of like started and grew up and like like was really in this from the get go.
Yeah, and like it is that hard thing, because when you grow up Asian, like you don't, again, like you have to choose between white and Black culture,
Right.
really. And so like he chose this culture that he felt acceptable in. And also like there's this the Filipino diaspora is such a wide swath of ethnicities, like, and like we're often called like this is the politically incorrect term, but we're like called like like the Filipinos are often like labeled like the Black people of Asia,
Right.
because like of the way that we're treated and the way that like colorism plays a part in
In Asian countries.
exactly
Yeah.
in Asian countries. And so I mean, like there's so much of like his experience mirrored in like in the Black experience that I think that like it resonates with him. And I think that like it's why his music is so well loved.
Right.
I mean,
It is this like ultimate question of like what are we allowed to be and what are we allowed to do in our art?
yes.
And I think like it is this, like you said, it is this gray area, and I think it is a result, or this it is going to be this messy kind of like building what Asian American culture is, which is so difficult because like it's only until since recently that we are even like coming together. Like I think that among Asians, not a lot of people quote unquote claim Bruno Mars really, except Filipinos. Like I know that a friend of mine, Gilbert, like he does bits all the time about being the Bruno Mars.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Like,
real. Yeah.
He does like all these sketches all the time, but and like I know that like Filipinos are really proud of him, but it is kind of like, who does Bruno Mars have in his corner?
Yeah.
It is it's kind of like because he is so popular and well loved in this country, it is kind of generally like Americans, but like in terms of like who's got his back when the chips are down. While it is Filipinos, it is this smaller contingent. It isn't this Asian American thing that's backing him. And in order for them to be kind of like, I guess like this, like who's the next Asian American superstar?
Yeah.
I think we need to like really come together in a way in terms of like who are supporting and like and getting behind people.
Yeah. And I mean, like now that you're saying like who is the next kind of star, like do stars even like, does that even exist anymore? Because like of streaming, because you can kind of like, there is this fracturing of the market. Like, is there like going to be like another, Bruno Mars, or even like, Ariana Grande? Like, is there like, is there going to be like another like superstar that everyone listens to? Like, or are we past those days and it's just like we just listen to who we listen to, like Joji or Rich Brian will just become like stars in their own right and supported by the people who support them. And like, it's okay that like not everyone in the world is obsessed with them.
Yeah.
Like, are we past that age of
like you're saying like is there going to be like supernovas, or are they going to be like white dwarfs, or like
like is there because like is there, who is going to, I mean, like when was the last time we've had like a superstar like breakthrough? Like besides Ariana Grande, I can't think of like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess Post Malone ish.
Yeah, I guess so. In Migos, but I mean like even then it's like
that is a very subgenre too.
Yeah,
like,
and it's like it's
not
and it's
like
like it's like
overall.
yeah, and because like there's a definite break between like radio and streaming. You know, when you look at radio, Maroon 5 is the number one song in America, but you look at streaming, they're not even in the top 20.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's this very strange
Because
like,
it is this kind of like breaking of like who is a tastemaker and who is like
Right.
a gatekeeper to all these things that are coming
Yes.
out now. Because it was this model where the way you got marketing was radio play.
yes.
And now it's just kind of like you don't need that anymore. Or maybe it is these different gatekeepers. Maybe it is like
Right.
the way you get played is if you get on Spotify top 10
Exactly.
or
You
something.
get on all of their Spotify lists.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like, I'm really excited to see like the next generation and continue to like evolve and create music that like speaks to me. And I
Right.
think, I think that like we're getting there. And listen to all the music. Like, like if you haven't heard Rina Ordinary Superstar, if you haven't listened to any of Kehlani's music, if you haven't listened to like Kehlani Honey, like you're literally your clothes fall off your body and you don't even know it. Like, Haley Kiyoko Curious, like that's a bop. Like you will be jumping your ass off at the club to that song, like, and just like continuing to like, I think it's like for me, what not kept me from listening to Asian American artists or Asian artists was that like it was this kind of like popularity thing, like if they're not going to be on the radio or if they're not going to be like on this whatever playlist, like then it's
Right.
just like, oh, like I won't know what's like cool and hip, but it's just like
Yeah.
as long as you're like, oh, like I want to listen to this because I exist when I listen to this music.
Yeah.
Like it is so fulfilling. Like you need to listen to Uzuhan. I cannot believe this. I should have sent this to you before we talked about this. I thought you had already listened to it, but like, yeah,
No,
changed my life.
I mean,
Like,
that goes to show, like, even I, as an Asian American, am so unaware
Mm-hmm.
of all these, like, new artists that are coming up because, like, I am, like, the way I consume music is through popular culture that just, like, streams to me.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I'm not, like, looking for these things. So, it's just kind of like that other extra layer of, like, not being aware of that this movement is even happening.
Yeah. So continue to study up, ladies and gentlemen. And I need to as well.
So we're gonna end with our Pod Duck Dong moment of the week. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah. So about a year ago, when the Hellboy remake was announced, Ed Skrein was cast as an Asian character,
Right.
And like it was totally during that time of Ghost in the Shell, Great Wall, Tilda
Yeah.
Swinton, like Emma Stone, and so like I think whether or not Ed Skrein really believed in like I want to like get away from this backlash, or I want to
Right.
like whatever his feeling was, like he like gave up the role.
Yeah.
And
I think he genuinely, I mean, like, I think I give more props to him than I did for what's her face, ScarJo, for that trans movie.
1,000%.
I was like, that was just
She's
was
a
just
problematic
PR move.
mess. I mean,
Yeah.
like we can even spend a whole episode just talking about all these people, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, so, but the point of this was that the movie poster just came out, and Daniel J. Kim is now this character and looks amazing, looks exactly like how he looked in the comic books,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm just like super
It's
excited.
like, why would you cast him?
Yeah.
Not that.
I know. Like, why would you not have like looked at this character in the comic book and just been like, oh yeah, that's him? Like, it's truly wild. It's
Yeah.
truly wild. But yeah, I think like sometimes these moments don't have to be like calling something out. Sometimes it's like it's a good thing, and it's like
Right.
sometimes we have to stop and just be
It
like,
is kind of like, where is the needle moving in terms of entertainment as it relates to Asian Americans? And I think like there are positive things going on.
Yeah. I think today was a pretty positive podcast in general. So
Positivity, positive vibes only.
Positivity.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, positivity. All right. Yeah, so that's it. This is actually the third time we've recorded this podcast because the computer kept not working. So I'm glad that we finished it.
We did it.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did it. It is.
Okay.
It is
All right.
done.
Yeah, signing off.
All right.
And,
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all under the same handle, Pod Duck Dong. That's PODDUKDONG.
And if you want to get in touch with us, if you have any cool stories, you have suggestions of what we should talk about, hit us up via email at podduckdong@gmail.com. All right, talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.